Assalamualaikum. Today we are going to start the topic loops. तो start करते हैं loops. So Assalamualaikum everyone. Today we are going to study a very powerful concept in programming, and that is loops. So in real life, many tasks repeat again and again. For example, checking emails every day, attendance marking in class, printing multiple pages from a printer, sending notifications to thousands of users in an app. So, if we had to write code for every repetition manually, programming would become extremely difficult. So, imagine writing 100 lines of code just to print the same sentence. तो इस वजह से हम जो है वो लूप यूज़ करते हैं रूटीन में भी काफ़ी चीज़ें हम रिपीटेडली यूज़ करते हैं तो बेसिकली a loop allows a program to repeat a block of code automatically until and unless a certain condition becomes false. So instead of writing code again and again, we write it once inside a loop and the computer executes it multiple times. So basically in today's lecture we will cover what are loops, why loops are needed, different types of loops in C++, while loop, do while loop, for loop and nested loop. So we will discuss all of them. And we will also solve some interesting examples and case studies as well. So basically, before we start coding loops, let's first understand why they are important. First of all, why you are studying programming. So definitely, it's a hell of courage and discipline, determination, and many of things. So before we start coding loops, let's first understand why loops are important. So in programming, one of the most common problems is repetition. For example, again, I'm telling consider a social media application like Instagram or Facebook. So when you open the app, it shows hundreds of posts, hundreds of comments, thousands of likes. So behind the scenes, the program is using loops to process this particular repeated data. So basically, a loop might be used to display every post in the feed, count total likes, process comment, recommend content, and things like that. So without loops, handling such repetitive tasks would almost be impossible. So this is where the transition comes from a simple. So before learning the syntax of loops, let us think about a simple real life problem. Suppose I ask you to write a program that prints welcome to C++ 100 times. So one way of writing it is manually. You will do it like cout welcome to C++ 100 times manually. But that could be inefficient, time consuming, difficult to maintain. So instead, we want a mechanism that says repeat this statement 100 times automatically. So that mechanism is in programming is basically called a loop. So loop tells a program to execute statements repeatedly. So formally speaking, a loop is a programming structure that allows us to execute a set of instructions repeatedly until and unless a condition is satisfied. अब जिस तरह इस केस में we are starting with count is equal to 0. As I told earlier, यहाँ पर हम लोग जो हैं वो डिक्लेरेशन के साथ इनिशियलाइजेशन भी कर रहे हैं. That means कि we are declaring count of type integer and meanwhile we are initializing it with a value of 0. Now in the very next stage, we will just check for that particular condition if it holds true. Like for instance, for the first time it will be 0 is less than 100, true that. So it will execute welcome to C++. Anything in double quote will be executed in the same way, the same fashion. Then after that we have an update expression that means increment, incrementing that particular variable. So post increment because after count plus plus it exactly works like count is equal to count plus 1. So 1 will be added in the initially the count variable. Now the count will be 1. So again we'll check the condition 1 is less than 100 true. So it will again print welcome to C++. So on and so forth it will execute from 0 to 99. So their total amount will be 100. Instead of writing the statement again and again, we basically write a loop like this. Uh, so now what happens here? The computer will start from zero, then check the condition, then we have printing that particular statement, which is welcome to C++, increasing the counter and repeating the process until and unless we get 99. On the 100, the equation or the condition will be false. So that is why this concept is used everywhere in real time software systems. For example, Google search processes millions of web pages. This is a real case study. So Google search processes millions of web pages. A loop is used to scan each web page, analyze those keywords, and rank on the basis of results. So without loops, search engines would not function that much efficiently. So a while loop executes statement repeatedly while the condition is true. So now let us just study the first type of loop, which is called the while loop. So the while loop works on a very simple rule. As long as the condition is true, keep repeating the code. So once the conditions become false, the loop stops. So the syntax is that we have while and then we have condition. We call it loop continuation condition, and in the body of the loop, we have multiple statement. It can be a single statement, it can be multiple statement as well. So the program basically in the flowchart we can see it follows three steps. It check the condition. If true, execute the loop body and repeat until conditions become false. So, like for instance, if we have an example just like this, so initially we are giving the value 0 to count, then we are checking the condition, and after checking the condition, if it is true, execute the statement and then update the expression. So exactly this is the flowchart that we start from here. We initialize a variable, then we check the condition. If it is true, statements would be executed and it will repeat again and again. If false, the next lines after the body will be executed. So for this particular example, if I consider count is equal to 0, the next step will be I will be checking that value. If it is less than 100, if it is true, it will execute this statement and update the variable as well. So it will be getting updated until analysis become false and it will just get outside of the loop. So this is how the example works. So real life example or real world example, consider an ATM machine. So the system keeps asking for the PIN code until the correct PIN is entered. So that is essentially a while loop. So if while PIN is not equal to correct PIN, ask again. So this is how it works. So we have some loop design strategies as well. Make it over here. So we have loop design strategies. Before writing loops, and a good programmer follow a loop design strategy. There are three main components we must always think about. The first one is initialization. We must start with a starting value. For example, if I say int I is equal to 1, so this is where the loop begins. In the second, we have condition. So this decides how long the loop should run. For example, if I say I is less than or equal to 10, so the loop will continue until and unless the condition become false. The third one we have update. After each iteration, we must update the variable, which is, for example, I'm updating that uh, variable I, which is I plus plus. So if we forget this step, the loop may run forever. So this situation is also called an infinite loop. So there are many examples of infinite loop in which you either don't place the right condition and that will be true forever, or you miss the update expression. So if the value of I never changes, so the loop will run forever. So in real time systems, infinite loops can cause system crashes, server overload, application freeze. So just for example, in video games, game engines run continuous loops They are called game loops to keep rendering frames. So that is must to keep them. So while breaking this into the steps, so in the step one, I will be identify the statement that needs to be repeated. Those statements within the loop which needs to be repeated, wrap. Then step two, we need to wrap these statements in a loop as follows. While true, so we have a multiple statement. We can have a single statement as well. But normally we consider in a while loop multiple statement, one to execute and the other to update. The code, uh, the loop continuation condition, which should be true and add appropriate statements for controlling that particular loop. So while loop continuation condition, the syntax will be that we have statements and then we have additional statements for controlling that particular loop. There are a few examples, simple practical examples. We have to like print numbers from 0 to 10, 0 to 100. So how will I do it? So simply, I can have a simple example as well of doing that. I was just writing the main thing. So the main program. For instance, if I say int I is equal to 0, then I have a loop. We have just discussed while loop, so I will just use this. While I is less than or equal to 100, then we have body of the loop. We have cout. There it is. Cout. We are just printing the value of I is. If I want to write it or I don't want to write it, so I can do it as well. And then I'm just printing, and every number will be printed on the next line. So handle is used for that particular purpose. Then I have I plus plus. So it will print all the values from 0. Initially 0 is less than or equal to 100. 0 will be printed. I can do it like this as well. Just print numbers from 0 to 100. Okay, so this is how it will work. It will check and it will update it accordingly. The second program is about printing numbers from 250 to 350. So simply in that particular program, 250 to 350. So I will just change it to 250 and this will be changed to 350. And again, so it will print all the numbers from 250 to 350. Again, I have a program that asks user for A and B and print all numbers from A to B. So in that particular case, what I will be doing, I will be declaring these two variables. Then I will be asking from the user CO, please enter the value A. And for instance, I say and L C in this will be saved in a variable. For the next line, I'm doing like yo, please enter the value of G and L. Sorry. And then it will be saved here. Now about the condition, I will start a is less than or equal to b, and I will just print a because the starting will be a, so it will print all the numbers from a till b. This is how the third program will execute, and you can do it for the rest. It will be a take home examples, because while doing this you will be exactly understanding how the program executes step by step. You will develop uh, the concept behind programming or building that particular program. So this is making some disturbance. These are the examples you need to execute at home. Okay, so what should be the output in these particular case? Any thinking what you are expecting? So in the first case, I is equal to 1, I is less than or less than 10. So initially I is equal to 1, we will check I is less than 10. 1 is less than 10, true that. 1 modulus 2, that means the remainder will be checked. So 1 modulus 2, which is basically not equal to 0, and it will just print out or nothing, because it won't be, and it will consider this, and where we don't have any update expression. Okay, so no printing for that particular case. In this case we have I is equal to 1, I is less than 10 condition with this, and we increment it. So after incrementing, we are just checking that what we are doing with this particular thing. So it will be like, but in that case it is not giving me the output. It will execute, but it won't be displaying me anything. Now it will just display me that particular increment. So you check it for that particular purpose. In that case, we are doing an increment and then checking. So it will do it for this particular. I will be incremented, and then we will check, and what will be the output. We just execute it, and same goes for this, which is the condition will always be true. While it is always true, what will be the output? We have an infinite loop. Uh, Basically, in programming, an extremely important skill is loop tracing. Tracing means predicting the output of a program without running it. This skill is very important for programming exams, debugging, understanding the algorithm. So you will be using those particular concepts. If not, so it will be unlimited iteration. So one of the most common mistakes beginners make is creating an infinite loop. An infinite loop is a loop that never stops executing. So, for instance, if I say int x is equal to 1, while x is less than or equal to 5, see out x, I haven't used any update expression. So, in that case, look carefully what is missing over here, the update step. So, for instance, I will say कि मैं लिखूं int x is equal to 1 initialization, while condition में x is less than or equal to 5 boolean. फिर मैं बॉडी ऑफ लूप में जस्ट लिखूं सी आउट और मैं लिखूं x. So basically we are missing the update step, which is x plus plus. We never wrote this. So what happens, x will always remain 1, or condition will be always held true. So the loop continues forever. So real life impact में क्या, infinite loops can cause serious problems. For example, in banking system, a bug once caused a loop that it kept processing transactions repeatedly. So this resulted in duplicate entries, server crash, financial inconsistency. That is why programmers must always ensure क्या तीन चीजें आपको इंश्योर करनी चाहिए. They are initialization, condition, and update. They will be correctly defined. So if not, I can't escape send help. The condition is always true. There are multiple numbers of iteration. So it will be still going and stuck here. So the loop will continue. So that is the loops that are the programmer's nightmare if you don't properly define initialization, condition, and update. Then you need to break the loop somewhere. So if you don't have any break condition, so then you will be just, and debugger is also just sleeping. So there are some output of the following input. Uh, this is string of, like, we have multiple 2, 3, 5, 4, 0. It will enter. For instance, initially I have declared two variables, number and max. Cn, we have a number. So whatever number you enter, it will be stored in this particular thing. Then we have max is equal to, initially I am assigning that number to max. Then we are checking if the number, this, it will continue until and unless the number becomes 0 and the loop will execute. So if while number is not equal to 0, cin will be giving me that particular, or storing that particular number. If number is greater than max, max is equal to number. We are just assigning that number to the max and storing it as max. The max value is updating. So max will be output and the number. So in that particular case, what I'm doing, if I enter 2, so initially 2 will be stored in max, while 2 is not equal to 0, which is true. We save 2 in number. Then we are checking if 2 is greater, then in that case we are having the max is 2 still. So max is equal to number, that will be 2. Max will be holding 2, so though both are 2. Now again I'm checking this particular thing. If now the next number I enter is 3. So 3 is entered, 3 will be checked. If greater than max, yes, max is updated, which will be 3. Then I enter 5, 5 will be replaced over here, and then 4 is smaller, so it won't, so max is holding 5. And when I enter 0, it will stop executing because as I told, the condition becomes false. So while 0, the number will be, maximum will be, I will be saying like the max is 5. And what do you think the number will be, 2, 3, 5, 4, 0, or whether it will be 0? So there are some examples which I am just discussing that you should do at home about the do while loop. So now let's discuss another type of loop which is called the do while loop. The key difference is a while loop checks the condition first, but a do while loop executes the code first. So in a do while loop, the loop body runs at least once, even if the condition is false. So we have a syntax that do, then we have statements, and then we have while in loop continuation condition, and you have to check that in while or for we don't have the semicolon, but in do while we say that it stop over here. So notice an important thing, there is a semicolon at the end. This is a common place where student makes mistake. So avoid this. We have some example as well. For instance, I can say that we start from here, the statements or loop body is executed, then we check the loop continuation condition. If it is true, execute those statements again. If it is false, just get. So the question here is, why, when should we use do while loop? So they are useful when we must execute the code at least once. If I say the real life example of this is password system. So suppose a system asks the user to enter a password. So if, even if the password is wrong, the program must at least ask for once. So for instance, I do, after do, I write over here, ask for password, some printing, while password is incorrect. So continue it. So this ensures the user is prompted at least once. So example, better example about this is ATM machine. When you insert a card into an ATM, the machine always asks for PIN first. Then it checks if the PIN is correct or incorrect. So that logic resembles to a do while. So in that particular case, we have, for instance, main program, enter an integer, the input ends uh, if it is 0, just like the previous example I did. In data, then we have seen data, that value will be stored uh, in sum is equal to 0, while data is not equal to 0. जब तक डेटा 0 नहीं होता, सम के साथ आप क्या करते हैं, उस डेटा को ऐड करते हैं. Like if I say 2 3 5 4 0 in the last case, so it will add 2 plus 3 plus 5 plus 4, and then when it adds 0, so this sum will be displayed. So this is exactly working. Sum is equal to sum plus data. So just in case if I enter 0 at first, it still will execute at least one time. That won't be executed, for instance, if the initially the data becomes 0. But in this case, it will execute at least once. So that is where the difference is. So we are just comparing while loop and do while. Condition is checked before execution in while. If the condition becomes false, the loop will not run at all. Uh, and do while condition is checked after execution. So if I say the loop always runs at least once, so for instance, let me compare it with some restaurant order. So while loop, how it works, waiter checks if the restaurant is open before taking the order. In do while loop, waiter takes your order first, then checks if the kitchen is open or not. Not a very practical in real life, but useful in programming. It is not practical in real life where he should go there and ask, first take the order and then check. Coming towards another concise syntax of for loop, a for loop has a concise syntax. So now we are moving to the third and most commonly used loop in programming, which is for loop. In many situations, you already know how many times a loop should run. For example, if I say print numbers from 1 to 10, display 10 student marks, process 50 records, and run simulation for 100 iterations. So in such cases, programmers usually prefer the for loop, जिसमें हमें पता होता है कि क्या होना है, how many times a loop should run. So the for loop combines three important components in one line. जिस while loop में हम देखते हैं initialization इधर होती है, फिर condition checking होती है, फिर statements के बाद we have update expression which adjusts loop control variable. ठीक हो गया. For loop में क्या होता है, we have initialization, then we have condition, then we have update expression. The syntax simply initialization, then we have condition and an update, and then we have statements within the body loop. So because everything is written in one place, इसका फायदा ये है कि the code becomes shorter and easier to read. So हमारे पास कैसे इसका flow chart बनता है कि the flow chart is in the part 1 we have the initial action which we call initialization. In the second, we have the loop continuation condition. जिसे हम condition भी कह सकते हैं. The loop will run as long as the condition is true. इसका मतलब है कि the loop starts from, for instance, in that case 0. Initialization हम करते हैं कि value assign करते हैं कि कहाँ से start होगी. अच्छा, the third one we have the update. That means after every iteration, the value of this particular I is increased by the value of 1. So in that case, if I say कि initial action flowchart है, फिर हम check करते हैं loop continuation condition. So initial action या initialization is used just for once. Then coming towards loop continuation condition, if it is true, execute those statements of loop body and action after each iteration, which is update expression. In that particular thing, we can say that initial action is 0. If example is this, I is less than 100, it is true, cout, welcome to C++. So then we have I++. So initially 0 था, 0 is less than 100, true. तो ये print करेगा welcome to C++, फिर I की value increment हो जाएगी. So how it works, पहले initial action होगी, उसके बाद loop continuation condition, उसके बाद we execute those statements, और फिर statements के बाद we check the update expression और फिर उसके बाद again go towards the loop continuation condition, and this is where the repetition or the loop is. So this is the execution flow of. So this is how the loop executes internally. Where, for instance, we have this code, and initially we assign the value of 0, then we have condition checking, and then we have update expression. So real life case study for loop is, if we let's connect loops with real life software systems, yeah, real world software systems. So consider an online examination system. So if we suppose there are 50 questions in exam, the system might use a loop like this. For question one, int question one, or I can just write for better explanation. If I say the code will be for int question is equal to 1, then I have second part, they will be separated with semicolon. Question is less than, or we call it equal to 50, and then we say question plus plus, then group by have some, I can just get display question. So this loop ensures that question 1 is displayed, question 2 is displayed, and till question 50 is displayed. So another example is social media notification. You get the notification in the app. So if an app needs to send notification to 1000 users, it might use a loop as well. So loops are essential for large scale software systems. We can also do reverse counting, can be used for reverse counting. For example, printing numbers from 10 to 1. So from back side, we can just place a condition in which we can just do it. So the changes you should be like initialization will be like we will be assigning a value of 10 for the initialization. In the condition, we'll check if it is greater than or equal to 1, and in the update we will use I minus minus. This type of loop is often used in countdown timers, game engines, rocket launch simulations. So NASA launch countdown system display 10, 9, 8, and so on. When it comes to 1, then after that it just launches, so which internally uses reverse loop. So you should be knowing about this as well. So if I say in while loop, what I do is int count is equal to 0, initialization over here, then we have condition checking, then execute statement, and then update expression. While in for loop we have, you can declare and initialize separately, then condition checking and update expression. The flowchart will remain the same and cout welcome to C++. But I can do it like this as well. I can declare and initialize in a single place as well. So the initial the action and action after each iteration in a for loop can be a list of 0 or more comma separated variables. जैसे ये वेरिएशंस ऑफ लूप है, फॉर इंस्टेंस अगर मैं एक से ज़्यादा वेरिएबल्स भी इनिशियलाइज करना चाहूँ, सो आई कैन जस्ट इनिशियलाइज मोर देन सिंगल वेरिएबल. In this case, I am declaring on initializing two variables, I with a value of 0 and j with a value of 0. Then I'm just adding those both, and so condition checking for more than a single variable, and same goes for the update expression. So I'm updating it for more than a single variable. Then another variation of loop, you can leave all the parts blank. If I leave them blank, that will be exactly meaning that for and the condition will be true for all the time, and it will be an infinite loop. which is exactly the same if I consider it while loop and do this. Again, same output. One is like pre-increment, the other is post-increment. In this particular case, it will be same. You have to figure it out that how it could be the same, which one to use, and why it will be preferred over the other. So we have some how many number of iterations we will be having. So in that case, if I say the count is 0, while count is less than 9 and count plus. So initially it will be checked while 0 is less than n. For instance, if I say that n should be in 10 in that particular case. Okay, so let me consider it 10. So in 10, 0, 0 is less than 10. Okay, so the first time, if I just print over here 0 value, then I'm incrementing it. If I'm not displaying, I'm just checking the number of iterations. So 0 for 0, it will be true. Then it will be incremented. Then for 1 is less than 10, it is true. For 2 is less than 10, true. And it will go, so 9 is less than 10, it will be true. For 10 is less than 10, the condition will come false. So it executed basically from 0 to 9. Altogether, we can say it executed from 0 to 9, that is 10 times. So I can simply just say that it executed n times. In that particular thing, if I say for int count is equal to 0, count is less than or equal to n. If the same example, n is considered to be 10, so from 0 and it will be incremented 0, 1, the count value will be 1 and it will be executed 10 is less than or equal to 10. From 0 to 10. So in that case, we can say that total execution is 11. So that is n plus 1 times. Here it is n times because it was less, so 0 to n minus 1 times it was executed. It is 0 to n times, that is supposed to be n plus 1 time. In that case, n count is equal to 5. So it will start from 5 and it will go towards n. For instance, from 5 and the n is considered to be 10. So initially 5 is less than 10, then 6 is less than 10, 7 is less than 10, 8 is less than 10. 9 is less than total 5 times it executed. So total n, so we can just write n minus 5. Because n minus 5 in a case, if we have so many numbers, I am considering n is 10. If it is 1000, so it will be 5 to 999 triple nine. So it will be like n minus 5. Again, coming towards this particular code, so these are almost the same, but instead of doing it, adding it 1, we are adding it 3 into it. So for instance, initially it will be 5, then 8. So what I'm doing it is n minus 5 divided by 3. We are just jumping with a value of 3. अच्छा, which loop to use and why? मैंने कुछ एग्जांपल्स भी रियल दिए हैं कि किस किस केस में कौन कौन सी यूज़ होते हैं, तो कब कब हमें यूज़ करना चाहिए. लेकिन स्टिल अगेन the while loop and for loop are called pretest loops because the continuation condition is checked before the loop body is executed. उससे पहले ही तो एटलीस्ट ये 0 और मोर टाइम्स अगर इनिशियल कंडीशन बिकम फॉल्स रही. The do while loop is a post test loop because the condition is checked later. तो ये one or more times. So the three form of loop statement while, do while and for are expressively equivalent. मतलब अगेन ये for हम यूज करते हैं जब हमें पता होता है कि कितने टाइम्स चलने हैं और एक कंसाइज कोड हमें चाहिए. while में थोड़ा एक्सटेंसिव और do while एटलीस्ट आप यूजर को प्रॉम्प्ट करते हैं एटलीस्ट एक दफा वो एंट्री कर. So that is you can write a loop in any of these three forms. अच्छा, empty loop ये कुछ mistakes कर जाते हैं स्टूडेंट्स. फॉर इंस्टेंस इफ यू प्लेस सेमीकोलन ओवर हियर, तो क्या होता है कि इट जस्ट शो मी कि ये एम्प्टी बॉडी है. सो रॉन्ग कंडीशन हम बता देते हैं. तो रॉन्ग कंडीशन में हमारे पास बाय सेमीकोलन आई मीन एम्प्टी बॉडी. अच्छा, ये के इशू है. फिर फॉर इंस्टेंस मैं कहूँ कि सेम गोज फॉर वाइल कि हम सेमीकोलन तो इसकी बॉडी में कुछ नहीं है. फिर अगर मैं बट डू वाइल में यू कैन जस्ट चेक दिस इज अ करेक्ट सिंटेक्स, तो सिंटेक्स को भी देखना चाहिए. नेस्टेड लूप. So now we will discuss a very important concept which is called a nested loop. A nested loop is basically means a loop inside another loop. In other words, we can simply say one loop controls how many times another loop runs. So सिंटेक्स इसका क्या होता है कि सी प्लस प्लस में एक आउटर लूप होती है जिसमें हम अगेन इनिशियलाइजेशन कंडीशन एंड अपडेट देन वी हैव एन इनर लूप जिसमें इनिशियलाइजेशन कंडीशन एंड देन वी हैव अपडेट। अच्छा दोनों फॉर भी यूज कर सकता हूँ, फॉर वाइल यूज कर सकता हूँ, वाइल फॉर यूज कर सकता हूँ। तो बेसिकली क्या होता है, हाउ इट वर्क्स, फर्स्ट द आउटर लूप स्टार्ट्स, ये स्टार्ट होता है। So for every iteration of the outer loop, the inner loop runs completely. एक सिंगल iteration के लिए। तो फॉर इंस्टेंस अगर ये मैं कहूँ कि i is equal to 1, इसको एक्सप्लेन करते हैं, i is less than 5, I plus. तो फॉर i is equal to 1, तो 1 is less than 5, true that, हम आते हैं लूप। अब हमारे पास क्या होता है कि वी कैन से जस्ट यहाँ पर हम एक वो टेबल बना देते हैं जिसमें आउटर लूप, देन वी हैव इनर लूप एंड देन वी हैव आउटपुट। तो आउटर लूप में हम कहें कि i इज इक्वल टू 1, उसके लिए अब इनर लूप में जाते हैं। तो इनर लूप में इनिशियली j इज इक्वल टू 0, j इज लेस देन i जो कि 1 है, तो 0 इज लेस देन 1, ट्रू। सी आउट, ये इस लाइन में 0 प्रिंट करके और 0 के बाद ये डबल कोट्स में स्पेस है तो स्पेस, देन वी हैव j प्लस प्लस दोबारा। अब j प्लस प्लस 1 इज लेस देन 1, ये फॉल्स हो जाएगा। तो एंड लाइन करके दोबारा ये यहाँ जाके अपडेट एक्सप्रेशन करके तो i की वैल्यू अब 2 हो गई, 2 इज लेस देन 5, ट्रू। अब j दोबारा इनसाइड आ जाते हैं। तो फॉर यहाँ आपने लिखना है i इज इक्वल टू 1 के लिए j इज इक्वल टू 0, जस्ट होल ट्रू था, आउटपुट 0 आ गया। यहाँ पर आपने लिखना है कि वाइल अब i की वैल्यू 2 हो गई, j जो है j ना 0 है, तो j 0 के लिए क्या होगा, 0 इज लेस देन 2, ट्रू। तो 0 प्रिंट होगा, स्पेस j इंक्रीमेंट होगा, स्पेस के बाद अब j की वैल्यू 1 इंक्रीज, 1 इज लेस देन 2, ट्रू। तो वो स्पेस के बाद 0 और स्पेस 1, जब दोबारा इंक्रीमेंट 2 इज लेस देन 2 फॉल्स होके दोबारा ये एंड लाइन करके दोबारा अपडेट एक्सप्रेशन i की वैल्यू 3 होगी, 3 होगी तो j इज इक्वल टू 0। here I can say कि 0 is less than 3, तो 0 प्रिंट होगा और स्पेस के साथ इंक्रीमेंट हो के 1, 1 is less than 3, ट्रू, 1 प्रिंट होगा, दोबारा इंक्रीमेंट j की वैल्यू 2 होगी, 2 is less than 3, अगेन 2 प्रिंट स्पेस, j की वैल्यू जब 3 हो जाएगी कंडीशन बिकम फॉल्स, तो दोबारा अब i की वैल्यू 4 होगी, 4 is less than 5, ट्रू। दोबारा तो ये 0, 1, 2, 3 एंड सो ऑन सो फॉर्थ, तो इस तरह से करेगा। जब i की वैल्यू 5 हो जाएगी ये ख़त्म हो जाएगा। अच्छा लास्ट हमारे पास नेस्टेड लूप्स, अब ये कैसे एग्जीक्यूट होगा, आई एम जस्ट एक्सप्लेनिंग इट कि हमारे पास क्या होगा इनिशियली। अच्छा वर्ड में मैं टेबल बना देता हूँ आपके आसानी के लिए, और ये एक प्रोग्राम हम करते हैं। ये आ गए, या मैं कह देता हूँ आउटर लूप, here we have an inner loop, then we have an out। अच्छा अब देखिए आउटर लूप में अब हमारे पास इनिशियली i इज इक्वल टू 0 आ गया, स्मॉल नहीं है, ठीक होगा। इनर लूप में इनिशियली सो I इज इक्वल टू 0, 0 इज लेस देन 5 ट्रू। अब यहाँ पर आते हैं J इज इक्वल टू 0। J को हमने असाइन कर दिया 0 बिकॉज I की वैल्यू J इज ग्रेटर देन 1, 0 इज ग्रेटर देन 1 फॉल्स है। सो फॉल्स है तो अब ये आएगा इसमें। अब इसमें या मैंने यहाँ पर बॉडी ऑफ द लूप नहीं, कर्ली ब्रेसेस नहीं यूज किए, सो इफ आई मिस दिस और ये एक मिस्टेक कर लेता हूँ, सो ओनली दिस स्टेटमेंट विल बी कंसिडर्ड कि ये इसके साथ होगा। इस केस में क्या होगा कि हम कह सकते हैं कि j इज इक्वल टू 0 और j इज इक्वल टू 0, बट j ये कंडीशन बिकम फॉल्स, तो ये वाली नहीं एग्जीक्यूट होगी, फॉलो एग्जीक्यूट होगी। तो ओनली वी विल बी गेटिंग द आउटपुट वी हैव स्टेरिक 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 स्टेरिक। अच्छा, फिर आई की वैल्यू इंक्रीमेंट होगी, दोबारा हम आउटर लूप में आई की वैल्यू इंक्रीमेंट, so it will be 1, so I is equal to 1 in that particular case. अच्छा, सॉरी फॉर द वेरिएबल्स, वैसे तो केस सेंसिटिव है कैपिटल, लेकिन अगेन हर दफा नहीं बंदा कर सकता। आओ नाउ, अब यहाँ आते हैं j इज इक्वल टू, हमारे पास I हो गया 1 हो गया, तो j इज इक्वल टू 1, j इज इक्वल टू 1 हो गया, तो 1 इज ग्रेटर देन 1, अगेन इट्स फॉल्स, सो ये वाली स्टेटमेंट नहीं होगी टर्मिनेट, नहीं एग्जीक्यूट होगी, and this will be executed, so again we have the same output which is this। अच्छा, अब अगेन इंक्रीमेंट होके इधर जाएगा तो I की वैल्यू नाउ वी विल बी हैविंग I इज इक्वल टू 2। I इज इक्वल टू 2 के बाद क्या होता है कि J इज इक्वल टू 2, J इज इक्वल टू 2 हो गया, 2 इज ग्रेटर देन 1 ट्रू, ये कंडीशन ट्रू, तो ये क्या प्रिंट करेगा 2, एंड देन वी विल बी हैविंग स्पेस, स्पेस के बाद ये जाएगा इधर, क्योंकि टर्मिनेटर मिल गया। नाउ द j वैल्यू विल बी 1, तो j वैल्यू एक ये हो जाएगी, j इज इक्वल टू 1, j 1 हो जाएगा, 1 इज ग्रेटर देन 1 which is false, so again this statement won't be executed, this statement will be executed, so we have again hysteric 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 hysteric। now coming towards this, इसके बाद follow up, so now how is it, I is equal to 3, we have I is equal to 3, जब I is equal to 3, 3 is less than 5 true, j is equal to 3, j is equal to 3, 3 is greater than 1 true, so 3 or then space will be here, 3 space, दोबारा जाके ये इधर जब स्टेटमेंट खत्म हो जाएगी, दोबारा जाके तो j की वैल्यू अब 2 हो जाएगी, so j will be equal to 2, then j will be equal to 2, 2 is greater than 1 true, तो ये 2 प्रिंट करेगा, and then we have another space, स्पेस के बाद j की वैल्यू 1, j will be equal to 1, j is equal to 1, 1 is greater than 1 which is false, again ये वाली नहीं एग्जीक्यूट होगी, जो for की बॉडी है which is just supposed to be this particular, तो ये नहीं एग्जीक्यूट होगी, नेक्स्ट फॉलो, so it will be executed and static 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 static। now again I will be implemented which is I is equal to 4, so I is equal to 4, now j is equal to 4 for the first time, j is equal to 4, j is equal to 4, so 4 is greater than 1 true, so ये क्या होगा कि 4 प्रिंट होगा एंड स्पेस। नाउ दोबारा ये यहाँ जाएगा, j की वैल्यू विल बी 3 नाउ, so j is equal to 3, 3 प्रिंट होगा क्योंकि 3 is greater than 1 true, तो 3 प्रिंट होगा एंड स्पेस, देन वी हैव दोबारा एक वैल्यू j की डिक्रीमेंट हो जाएगी, तो j विल बी इक्वल टू 2, j is equal to 2, greater than 1 true, तो 2 प्रिंट होगा एंड स्पेस, 2 एंड स्पेस, then again ये j की वैल्यू डिक्रीमेंट होकर j is equal to 1, ये j is equal to 1 जब हो जाएगा, 1 is greater than false, तो ये लूप की बॉडी से बाहर निकल आएगा, so it will be printed as स्टेरिक 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 स्टेरिक, जिसके बाद आई प्लस प्लस, तो आई की वैल्यू नाउ 5 इज लेस देन 5 विच इज फॉल्स, सो ये दिस विल बी द आउटपुट विच विल बी डिस्प्ले। दिस वाज फॉर द फर्स्ट प्रोग्राम। सेकंड प्रोग्राम अगर हम करें, ये वाले फिर आपको टास्क दूंगा कि आप लोग कर लें। कंट्रोल सी, वी आर हैविंग दिस एज वेल। लेट मी कॉपी दिस पर्टिकुलर टेबल, बिकॉज ऊपर इनर आउटर लूप इनर लूप ये मुझे आसान है। नेक्स्ट पेज, ओके। So initially I is equal to 5 outer loop के लिए, आउटर लूप के लिए जो 5, तो I is greater than or equal to 1 ट्रू हो गए। अब इनर लूप से पहले वी हैव num is equal to 1, num की वैल्यू जो है that is equal to 1। Now coming towards here, and j is equal to 1, 1 is less than or equal to 5, I की वैल्यू initially 5, num is less than or equal to 5 which is true। इसने क्या प्रिंट करना, नम विच इज बेसिकली यहाँ पर 1 है, एंड उसके साथ वी हैव 3 स्टार। देन क्या हो रहा है कि नम की वैल्यू इज बेसिकली मल्टीप्लाई बाय 2, तो नम की वैल्यू क्या है कि 2 के साथ मल्टीप्लाई हो गए दोबारा, तो नम की वैल्यू यहाँ पर हमारे वी हैव इंक्रीज इन वैल्यू विच इज नम इज इक्वल टू 1 into 2 विच इज एग्जैक्टली नम इज इक्वल टू नम into 2, 2 हो गया। अच्छा, 2 होने के बाद अब नम की वैल्यू 2 हो गई, यहाँ इसके बाद हम गए हैं तो j की वैल्यू इंक्रीज हो गई, तो j इज नाउ 2, 2 इज लेस देन और इक्वल टू 5, ट्रू दैट प्रिंट करेगा नम की वैल्यू जो कि 2 हो गई 2, एंड देन वी हैव दीस। अब क्या हो जाएगा कि ये जब एग्जीक्यूट होगी इसके बाद नम की वैल्यू मजीद अपडेट हो जाएगी, दैट विल बी नम इज इक्वल टू 2 into 2, बिकॉज नम की वैल्यू 2 थी तो 2 into 2, दिस इज एग्जैक्टली नम इज इक्वल टू नम into 2, दैट विल बी 2 into 2 विल बी 4, 4 होके दोबारा अब j की वैल्यू, तो इस केस में वी कैन जस्ट राइट j की वैल्यू साथ में ये भी लिख लें तो आसानी होगी। नम जब 1 था तो j इज इक्वल टू 0, j इज इक्वल टू 1 फर्स्ट केस। नम जब 2 था इंक्रीज हो गया, j वाज सॉरी j was supposed to be around 2, नम जब 4 हो गए, ये was supposed to be 3, बिकॉज हम यहाँ पर ऐड कर रहे हैं तो j is equal to 3। अब जब num 4 j is equal to 3, 3 is less than or equal to 5 जो है, तो num की वैल्यू which was 4 और this will be printed, so 4 again। अच्छा, अब क्या हो गया, ये जब प्रिंट हो गया num की वैल्यू अब इंक्रीज which will be equal to num is equal to 8, 4 into 2, that is because num is equal to num into 2, j की वैल्यू एक और इंक्रीज हो गई, j is equal to we can call it 4। So now what will be printed, j is equal to 4, 4 is less than or equal to 5, I give value still outer loop 5 here, तो 4 is less than or equal to 5, right। तो ये क्या होगा, num x num हमारे पास 8, we have this। now after this num एक और, num will now be equal to 8 into 2 which is 16, j की वैल्यू इंक्रीज होके j is equal to 5, so 5 is less than or equal to 5, यहाँ less than or equal है तो that is true, ये num की वैल्यू जो 16 थी ये appended with these, so this is how it works। अच्छा, फिर इसके बाद क्या होगा, जब j की वैल्यू 6 हो जाएगी तो कंडीशन बिकम फॉल्स, दोबारा ये नीचे आके एंड लैंड करके I minus 1, so now I will be 4, so outer loop में I will be now is 4, जब I 4 num is equal to 1, equals to 1, see, or j is equal to 1. So num is equal to 1, j is equal to 1. J is less than or equal to 4, I की value 4 है, तो 1 is less than or equal to 4. तो num क्या है, num और this, num was 1, 1 and this will be printed. Now num will be multiply or equal to 2 again. तो हमारे पास क्या होगा कि num की वैल्यू ये दोबारा ये की वैल्यू भी, we have this and we have what this. num की वैल्यू भी इंक्रीज होगी, j की वैल्यू 2 is less than or equal to 4, तो num print होगा which is 2 and this. then क्या होगा कि num की वैल्यू इंक्रीज हो गई, so num is equal to 4 and j is equal to 3. In that case we have 4 this num print होगा ये हमारे पास num is equal to, again we have num, तो num की वैल्यू 4 है, 4 multiplied 2, so we have num is equal to 8, j is equal to 4, 4 is less than or equal to 4, so num 8 or is direct print home. Then I डिक्रीमेंट हो के i is equal to 3 हो जाए, क्योंकि जब j की वैल्यू 4 से ज़्यादा हो जाएगी फर्स्ट ये नेक्स्ट में आ जाएगा. तो इसके लिए अगेन थोड़ा सा क्विक कर दे तो ये 3 होंगे, बिकॉज i की j की वैल्यू जब तक 3 तक जाएगी तब तक that will be printed just like this or just like this. j की वैल्यू जब तक 3 के लिए लास्ट it will be just printed like this. अच्छा, फिर उसके बाद हमारे पास we have i की वैल्यू 2, एक डिक्रीमेंट हो जाएगी, तो 2 के लिए j की वैल्यू जब तक 2 होगी तब तक ये we have this particular thing, we have this and we have this and i is equal में डिक्रीमेंट हो गया l equal to 1 के लिए j की वैल्यू जब 1 जाएगी ये कंट्रोल c only, then we have only this. इसके बाद जब i की वैल्यू इससे डिक्रीमेंट होगी तो ऊपर की कंडीशन फॉल्स हो जाएगी and the loop won't be executed. ये एक पैटर्न है जो कि फॉल आपने देखना होगा, तो नेस्टेड लूप्स बेसिकली आर एक्सट्रीमली इम्पोर्टेंट इन साइंटिफिक कंप्यूटिंग इन एआई सिस्टम. तो एक जो कॉमन एग्जांपल इसकी मैट्रिक्स प्रोसेसिंग है. सपोज वी हैव अ मैट्रिक्स टू डायमेंशन टू प्रोसेस ईच एलिमेंट वी यूज नेस्टेड लूप. सो हमारे पास अगर आउटर और इनर लूप में तो मैट्रिक्स में 2 डायमेंशंस में, तो आउटर लूप बेसिकली रोज होते हैं और इनर लूप कॉलम्स होते हैं. तो मैट्रिक्स ऑपरेशंस कहाँ यूज होते हैं, आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस में, कंप्यूटर विजन में, न्यूरल नेटवर्क्स में, image processing में. When your phone camera detects a face, it processes thousands of pixels using those nested loops. This small concept is actually used in advanced technology. So, हम अगर summarize करें कि क्या किया इसमें, so what we have learned in this lecture, so there are 3 main types of loop. While loop, जिसमें condition is checked before execution, used when number of iteration is unknown. Example क्या है, password checking या waiting for user input. Then we discuss do while loop. Condition is checked after execution or loop execute at least once. Example ATM pin verification या menu driven programs. Then we discuss for loop. Best number of iterations is used. They are commonly used for counting या processing arrays या repeating fixed tasks. So about final thoughts, loops are one of the most powerful tools in programming. Without loops, programming would become extremely repetitive and inefficient. So imagine writing code to print 100 numbers, process 1,000 users, analyze a million of data points. So without loops, you would need to write thousands of line of code. So, but with loops, we can write compact and efficient programs. So, key takeaways can always remember three components of loops: initialization, condition, and update. And avoid mistakes like infinite loops या wrong condition या off by one errors. So, इसके बाद next lecture में we will combine loops with arrays, functions, problem solving, which will allow us to build more powerful programs. So at the end of this lecture, I will be asking you to write some programs, बोल programs list of programs मैंने start में दिए थे वो कर लें. Um, you can have any loop example, a real life program case study, Google या Netflix की loops देख लें. Uh, 5 exam style loop tracing question कर लें, which is very useful for you people exam point of view से. So this is how it will work. Thank you so very much. Jazakallah.